The way to make an investment good value is to work it hard. That means block your calendar. And then the things we talked about, time and money are interchangeable. When you got a week to go, no matter how much money you got, as Steve Jobs found out, you cannot buy it back.
Welcome to the Scale My Clinic podcast. I'm Sachin, co-founder of Scale My Clinic, here to help general practice owners build thriving, profitable and efficient clinics. Together with Todd, we bring you actionable strategies, inspiring success stories and expert insights to transform your practice. Let's dive into today's episode and take the next step to improving your practice. Welcome. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about moolah, money, cash, cashola, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the latest YouTube bro language is for it, Todd, and I don't think we are YouTube bros really. But it's the common thing that comes up from practice owners that my practice is struggling from a sustainability point of view. I want to improve my business, but I'm worried because I don't have the money. The practice isn't generating the money for me to be able to invest to make it better. I don't know how to access money to make it better. You know, it's operating, it's staying afloat, but it's not shooting the lights out. And so Todd is going to help us solve that today. And then I'm going to help him solve that too.
Thanks, Sachin. There's probably only 2 or 3 minutes to fix all of the money problems of anybody that's listening here, and then they could just take that to the bank. All right. On a more serious note, there is nothing funny about having no money. So we do want to take this matter really seriously. I'm just going to give a shout out to small business owners Australia-wide in any sector. I love you guys. And the reason I love you is you do all of the heavy lifting in the community in relation to our contribution. So the reason I love small business is we give something in regard to the service or the product that we sell, right? The first bit of value we give is the thing that we do. The second bit of value is around all of the taxes we pay. And this might sound a bit weird, but I'm really proud of the fact that we pay taxes. We're not IKEA, Google, Facebook, mining companies. We're not doing transfer pricing, Sachin. I'm not offshoring Scale My Clinic and then paying a fee to that happens to be the amount of tax that I should have paid. All the bullshit that goes with large industry is not possible for small industry. And there's also an arrow I'm going to shoot at not-for-profits. Not a fan of not-for-profits, apart from the fact that I've worked in a few, and large boards, slow decision-making, poor accountabilities, redistribution of profit amongst overpaid executives, and the fact that they then give zero. So you get something one time for a not-for-profit, the service, you don't get a second bite of the cherry. They're not paying any taxes anywhere. Meanwhile, the rest of us bunnies like you and I, we're paying company tax, we're paying our personal tax, payroll tax, we're paying property taxes, we're paying taxes on everything. And so the reality is, if small business didn't exist, Australia would be royally screwed. So a shout out to all the people who get up every day going to work to pay for the taxes that then become the roads, the schools, the other services that all of us need and love. And so the key thing here is that your name is on everything. Your name's on the pay slips, your name's on the building, on the leases. You're accountable for all of this stuff. And so I often hear people in medicine say things like, I don't expect a lot of money, or I'm not in this for the money. Like they say things like that, you know. And when I hear that, I'm going to ask you, when you hear someone say that, when somebody says, hey, Sachin, look, my business isn't working very well at the moment. I'm not making a great living. I'm having to work extra hours to subsidize it. I'm on about a 50% retention. All my GPs are on 65%. Not really in this for the money. What goes through your head?
Two things. One is bullshit, but the other is actually that they may have adjusted their expectations down, right down, because they've just been disappointed or disheartened for so long that their sort of thermostat has gone from far away from, you know, when you first start your practice, you know, you have a vision in your head, you have all these hopes and aspirations, and financial will be a part of that, but there'll be other much bigger things, often impact and culture and doing good. And then the financial reward is often the secondary benefit. But I think there's a thermostat we have, and I suspect what happens is people just turn down their thermostat because it's like, oh, well, I haven't been able to do it so far, so I'll just ask for less and then I won't be disappointed. I think there's some of that. But the other, of course, is there are people who actually are just lying to themselves. It is important because that's how you pay your bills and how you buy your things that you need and your basics, food and shelter, and then some of the treats in life and some of your longer term memories and aspirations. And without the money, it's probably not happening.
100%. I think this is probably a good opportunity to talk about a model, and I'm going to try and talk through it, that a good friend of ours, Simon Bowen, taught us, and that is the one called the 3 futures. So if we imagine that we've got a little box that captures the date now, and then we extend a line that's a horizontal line that goes 3 years into the future, and we just say, okay, 3 years away from today, the date will be today plus 3 years. And then there's, broadly speaking, 3 different possible futures for the person. Let's just talk about it here as the financial viability of the practice, right? And we've talked about a lot of these where people are doing a lot of self-sacrifice as part of business. Sometimes people should get that confused as a business identity, that a business is about making sacrifices. And yes, it might be temporarily, but it should not be a permanent state of play. And so the first group is, if you imagine going forward in time 3 years, there's a red line that starts to drift below the kind of level. And so if we were in the group that was being a bit passive about it, we knew things weren't working out well, we weren't confident in the decisions we were making, and that's probably reasonable because you think, you know what, I'm in a pretty crappy circumstance financially in my business. I'm not confident of the decisions that I've made before because that's how I got to be where I am. And so they don't make any decisions and they kind of just drift. And then there's the worst thing here, I think, is that the businesses often don't fail. What happens is they push extra responsibilities onto the owner, and the owner's working for a non-market rate of return. So 2 doctors decide to go away for holidays. That doctor has to work 60 hours a week and suck it up. And then even as well as working 60 hours a week, they often retain a very small portion of this. And I've seen doctors do this in ways that sound great. I heard one doctor say that they're the CEO of their business and that their income as CEO was 250 grand. When I had a look at the numbers, they're actually billing 600 grand. So the title of CEO was to paper over the fact that it was a shit business and the fact that they, as a doctor, would be getting a much higher return if they just went and did that for somebody else. And so that's the drift that happens with one. The next one, which is more common, where people kind of fight along and they bounce along the line that's on the horizontal. And at the end of 3 years, they're pretty well in the same circumstances as they are now. And they're just reacting to changes in the environment. So the sort of things that to them, one of the receptionists says, oh, the place down the road's doing this thing. They've started this thing. I saw in an online forum, you need to do this thing. I went to the practice owners conference and these people told me I need to do this thing. And so what happens is you're taking advice from people because you don't have any clue about what you want to do. There's no strategy. So you're just getting tactics. You're not even your tactics, everybody else's tactics. And they're usually conflicting. And so you're doing a lot of work at the end of it. This is like that person that goes to the gym 5 times a week and doesn't do that much there. They're kind of mucking around and they're wasting the time. But in the end, when they say to their friends, I go to the gym 5 days a week, everyone looks at them, pulls that face like, really? Are you going 5 days a week? So this is a lot of time and energy wasted, but you're not getting the outcome. And then the third group is where it's a green line and it's actually angling upwards and it's an exponentially increasing line because those people are making the right decisions. They're usually surrounded by the right people. Your community is a really important part of that. And in the early days, the returns are fairly small, but they start to compound over time. And then they really, really separate from that middle group and start to skyrocket after a period of time because of the law of compounding returns. And ultimately, that's the reason that we get into business. So the business is set up to solve a problem, but the very next thing on the line is to make money. Otherwise, it's a not-for-profit. Like, do not go through the palaver of setting up a business if you do not want to make a profit. You might as well just have a not-for-profit structure and be done with it. And then if you're going to take personal risks on a not-for-profit, that's pretty stupid because it doesn't make sense to have the downside if you don't have the upside. But the rest of people have to just get serious about the fact that if you want to make money, you usually need to invest some money in getting different advice because I'm going to be really brutal here, is what you have right now is 100% of your doing. If your business sucks and you don't have any money, it's because of you. Go and look in the mirror and it's your leadership, it's your team. If you're standing there saying, no, I've just got a shitty team, well, you hired them. You're the one who leads them. It's you, it's your habits, your beliefs. You are holding back the whole thing. So usually that means you do need to get a reset from somewhere externally. Yes, you can work your way out of it, but it's actually pretty hard to do because like you've talked about in other episodes, there's Johari window as Donald Rumsfeld has described it, as the unknown unknowns. We don't know those things. We don't have the awareness of the habits that we have. And the problem is that when you're running a sinking ship, most people can sense that. And so any good A-graders on your team, they'll have usually left a while ago to go and work for practices that are on that green line and going up. So you're usually left with most of the duds, and you're just the least dud of the duds. And so you need to actually start to reflect and change your behaviors, your beliefs, and then you'll start to get different outcomes. So I want to give an example, if I may, about somebody who is none of those things in terms of duds or anything else. But I want to give an example of somebody who took no money but invested in Project X, in this case, working with us. They took a leap of faith and they created an amazing outcome in a really short period of time, which I'm going to say is abnormal. So I just want to put it out there that this kind of a recovery in this amount of time is really unusual. And the way you get this is the volume of work. So there's only 3 ways to get an outcome. One is your beginning skill set. What are your skills when you start? The second thing is the amount of time that you invest in this, the duration of time, I mean. And the last thing of the 3 ways to get an outcome is the volume of work done in that time. So we go back to the gym, the person who's really sweating and huffing and puffing is going to get a better outcome than the person who's and this actually happened to me the other day. I went to the gym. There was a guy, I shit you not, he's drinking a coffee from a coffee cup. He's bought it from, he's on a machine doing an overhead press, and he's on the phone as well. He's on the phone, moving with one arm up and down and having a coffee in between. Now that dude is spending the time, he's not getting the outcome, he's not doing the work. And so you need to do those 3 things. So this person put aside an enormous amount of time and they worked like blazers to get it happening. So this person joined Project X after something that we haven't done for a little while, it works so well we stopped doing it, called the 5 days to 50K challenge. So this was 5 hours. We used to hang out with owners, 1 hour a day over 5 days. And the mission was to find 50K in the business. And from memory, this person, you can correct me here, they scraped in at just over 50K was the opportunity they saw, right? Is that right? Was it just over 50 or just under 50?
118.
118. Oh, there you go. So a bit over 50K. You got a bad memory for this stuff for me. And the business was, I'm going to say it was in suspended animation for a variety of reasons. Small practice, 4 or 5 rooms, and for a bunch of reasons that aren't that relevant, wasn't able to be moved or modified. And it was kind of like a zombie clinic in that at some point in time, the belief from the owner was it's probably going to close. And because of that, it was really difficult to put time in it. But this person had a really high sense of pride and a high commitment to the community. They'd been an owner for about 20 years and a sole owner for about 10. And so this mattered a lot to them. Anyway, they got to working with us, had an amazingly rapid shift in their mindset. And what they were able to do in the course of 18 months to 2 years was to relocate the clinic. And in doing so, set up a place that was double the size. But you and I talked about this in another episode. They managed to get the rent to 0 or negative. We won't talk about how they did that, but this is a fully fitted out space with a negative rental. And they were able to then recruit new GPs to this. And the business valuation on this new clinic, which would have been, the old one was never valued, but it would have been close to 0, if not 0, because it didn't make a profit, didn't have a future. This person invested in their own future. This is why I love somebody like this, because they decided to invest money in joining Project X that they didn't actually have if you look at it from the perspective of the business providing it. But just like you might invest in shares or property or something else, you've got to put some money in to get some money back. Like that's how life works. This person did that. And then it was not even 18 months later that they had a business that had a formal bank valuation of around $2 million. And so this person literally created $2 million out of thin air. And they would have been able to find a buyer for it at that price too. Now, that is exactly how business coaching should work, because they did a massive amount of work. And I think in honesty, you and I sat back and looked at this. It's probably somewhere between 3 and 5 years of work that they did in 18 months, and not just them, obviously a team as well. But that is an extraordinary outcome. And that is when people say, I don't have the money to do this. What you're accepting is the death by 1,000 cuts, because whatever the line is that's brought you to where you are now, those 3 lines I talked about, you can just extend it. If you're going along that shitty one and bouncing along and making no money the last 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years in the future, it will be the same. If you're losing money, 3 to 5 years in the future, you'll be closed. So you need to have external wisdom and advice in order to get there. You know, if you or I are the number 25 or 30th tennis player in the world, we need to change our coach. We need to get new habits and new perspectives, and we want to get into that top 5 or maybe even make it to the number 1. I think it's the same thing with money. You've got to find the money to get the money back. How quickly should you expect to get it back, though, Sachin? We talked about a really ridiculously rapid rate of return there for one person. How quickly should people expect to get their money back?
In terms of improvement, we talk about working through the layers of our model. And so we say going from a nightmare job up to a well-paid job and then a real business all the way through to the asset layer. And really ascending that pyramid, you're probably looking 5 to 7 years typically. And then there'll be outliers that accelerate beyond that. There'll be outliers that go a bit slower than that. But it's a 5 to 7 year commitment to create something of true asset value, I would say. And the other part that I think is really interesting, and one of our guests in Project X, one of the specialists we had came to talk to us about this, is that the ROI, when you invest in your own business, you've got a tactical advantage over any other investment class, really, because businesses typically sell on a multiple of somewhere from 3 to 7, depending on the nature of the business. So if it sells at 3 times, then you're making 33%. Year on year, etc. Stocks are way, way, way lower. Stocks and shares or property, significantly below that. And so putting a relatively small investment into your own business gives you the chance, because the odds are stacked in your favor as well because of your expertise and already your experience in that business, of significantly outperforming any other asset class. And I'd never actually thought about it like that until it was Jason Andrew, I think, from SBO who shared that with us. And he went, actually, you've got a really good point. Why would you not invest in your business? You'd be stupid not to, because the chances of a return are significantly higher. Once it's an operating business and it's proven to be operationally effective, it's just investing and then putting your attention in the right places with the right support around you. The chances of significant returns are just way higher.
100%. And one of my attitudes with this, you and I both receive coaching. As we give it, we take it seriously. And so it would be hypocritical of us not to receive coaching. And I've done that in multiple areas of life when I want to get somewhere a bit more quickly. And one of my mindsets with this is, what would have to be the minimum that I would get for me to be happy with the return I've had here? And it's often not much. The requirement for performance of coaching or expert advice is often not a really high hurdle. I think people look at it the wrong way. There's that scarcity mindset with spending money. This isn't spending money, it's investing money, right? If you invest money, it's like complaining about signing up to the gym and then not going. Well, then it's a problem, and you are actually just spending money, you're not getting anything in return. But the way to make an investment good value is to work it hard. So that means block your calendar. And then the things we talked about, acquire the skills. And when you're in the arena, sweat it out. Actually do the work. Wrestle things to completion. Get your team involved. Spread the workload. That's how you get value out of it. Not, I don't know if I want to spend the money on that. I think that's a really impoverished mindset. And at least for a period of life, time and money are interchangeable. When you got a week to go, no matter how much money you got, as Steve Jobs found out, you cannot buy it back. But up until that point, you can actually interchange and so you and I have talked a bit about this, and I know you're a massive fan of this. The money that you generate from your business can give you back time. So it can give you back time in your personal life by offloading tasks, responsibilities, jobs you don't like or that you don't have time to do. Somebody else can do them better. Within the business, you can delegate responsibilities to other people. And so money becomes the weapon to get back time. But the people who never want to spend the money, guess what happens? They never get that time back. They're stuck with no free time and no money, which is the worst combination, because then life really sucks. And you have to decide to behave and believe differently to get out of it, because you've got to start spending some of that money that you're so jealously hoarding and holding for whatever in order to start getting that time back, and in getting time and money back as well.
Absolutely. One of the things that comes to mind is people might worry about spending money, but they don't think about the cost of not spending it or not investing it. So in your example, the cost for that person, if they had not done that, there would have been a financial cost and a non-financial cost. And the financial cost for them of not spending that would have been the best part of $2 million of asset value and about $500,000 a year of profit, right? So that would have been the financial cost. But the non-financial cost for that person is that their business would likely have just petered away into just a gentle shutdown. And their overwhelming wish was to have a place that was a legacy for the next generation of GPs. And they would have exited the business world with that wish being unfulfilled. And looking back at their career, that would have been a massive regret. And so the financial cost and that regret together, what value would you put on that? Or a very small investment?
That's really taxing, right? So just making the decision to accept a shitty current reality because you don't want to invest some money in a possible future outcome that's better is pretty wild, isn't it? To think that somebody might think, actually, I'm just not going to do that, because you're just what you're doing is just tolerating and reaching a point of acceptance rather than saying, I commit to my life being different. It should be different. It must be different. And this goes back to some of the stuff we talked about earlier with time. If you're going to run a shitty business, a shitty clinic, and you're going to make no profit and have to be there the whole time in order to financially support it, you cannot blame younger doctors for saying, that looks shit, I don't want to do that. And at the moment, only 10% of doctors want to do this. And it's mostly because people are sitting in crappy clinics, not wanting to make an investment in an improvement because of a scarcity mindset to make that kind of an investment decision in themselves. Can you imagine lacking the belief in yourself that you're just not going to do that because you can't see that you could possibly do anything differently? I think for all of us, we've got an obligation to make sure that we get the best out of ourselves, any business that we're involved in, and that we are a beacon to the people that are following so they can do better than us. They want to be building on shoulders of giants, but we have to be wanting to do better than the people that came before us as well. And I think that's something that at the moment you see general practice is in a bit of a torpor, a defeatist state. And so we need to get the paddles out, charge them up, get a little bit of gel and say, clear up, get things going again. A bit of drama.
And so I think what we're really saying there is that when you make an investment in your business, the risk of that investment, for example, Todd was talking about getting the right support, advice and coaching. In that setting, the risk of that investment is significantly outweighed by the benefits, both financial and non-financial. And so as we come to an end, the question that I want to leave you with is, when you decide that you're not going to make that investment in yourself, what will that cost you today? What will that cost you tomorrow? And what will that cost you in 10 or 20 years' time? And most of all, what will it cost those around you? Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in to the Scale My Clinic podcast. I hope today's episode gave you valuable insights and practical steps to take your clinic to the next level. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to share it with other general practice owners who benefit from improving their practices too. Looking for more tools, resources and updates? Why not follow us on Facebook at Scale My Clinic to stay connected, to join the conversation with like-minded practice owners. Let's keep working together to scale your clinic and build something truly impactful. See you next time.